Hello and welcome to the start of a new sewing vlog. So what you're going to see in this video is over the course of quite a few days, but today I've got about 45 minutes before I need to leave here, and I'm going to make a start on making a patchwork footstool using scraps of Cath Kidston upholstery weight fabric. It's something that I wanted to make to go with the cosy chair in the corner of this studio room. So I've got about 45 minutes to cut up the fabric into squares, so let's have a look at it. So you may or may not know that I'm a bit of a Cath Kidston fan, and this first piece of upholstery fabric that I have is actually really big. It's a nice big piece. And then I have some smaller pieces, so they're only this wide. Quite long though. That's the Provence rose. I have two of those. This is another one. I like that design. And then I've got this one, which I think is spray flowers. So they're not huge, but I'm going to cut them up anyway. So I've got this one as well. There you go. Again, it's quite narrow, so pretty. And I've got strawberries. Love that one. And then two more. I've got this one, quite a big piece. This big rose design. And finally this one, which is another sort of spray flowers type one, not very big, that piece. Right, so I need to clear down the cutting table, which you can see over there in the background is a bit messy. Get that nice and clear and get cutting. So what I'm doing is cutting them into different widths and different lengths, basically. So because the strips are not all even all the way along because they're scraps. So I'm making a pile here of 8.5 inch long strips. These here will be 7 inches long, and I'm hoping that I can get a variety out of all of the different prints in different widths. So that's why I've cut this one narrow. These thicker because it will really add to the look of the patchwork, sort of a mismatched patchwork. So far I've got those 3 piles there, and I've got mainly white on this blue, so I'm going to now cut up one of the other blue fabrics that I've got, so there's a bit more variation in the piles. This one, there's not many in, so I need to cut some more smaller pieces, and then we can sew them together tomorrow morning. And a little tip, if you're working with scraps that maybe you've bought on eBay, I bought some of these on eBay, or maybe you've had sitting at home and maybe they've got a bit of a musty smell. It's not ideal to wash scraps like this because they can fray and that can be quite problematic. So what I did was I actually pegged them out on my washing line outside. I sprayed them with Febreze and I left them outside. I knew it wasn't going to rain, so I left them outside for 48 hours and the smell was completely gone, and they're great. You know, it's funny how fabrics can really create memory, or bring back memory I should say, because I'm just working with this fabric here. When I'm cutting this up, all I can think of is my gran. Now this is a modern fabric, but it is based off designs from the past, and I don't know, but maybe she must have had something in her house when I was a child that was like this. I know she loved roses, so it's really making me just think of her, and yeah, it's strange how that happens, isn't it? So I think I'm about done for today. I've got parcels to take to the post office and then my son to pick up from school. So I'll see you again tomorrow morning, where we'll start stitching the panels together and see if this works out. So today's video has very kindly been sponsored by Serious Readers. Serious Readers make a fantastic range of really high quality serious lights, and here in the studio I have the high definition tabletop light. At home I have the high definition floor standing light, which I've been using for over 2 years now, and honestly they've made such a difference to my stitching because they use something called daylight wavelength technology, and what that does is replicate the daylight spectrum as closely as technically possible. So the light that it gives off really feels like you're working in natural daylight, so it reduces eye strain and just creates a really lovely stitching atmosphere. This model that I have here in the studio is actually the cordless version, so I can pick it up and I can move it about to wherever I might need it. So I can take it over to my cutting table if I need it there, or I can move it to the central table if I'm stitching there. If you'd like to find out more about the Serious Lights range, there's a link in the description box, and if you use the code EMMA24 when purchasing any high definition light, then you can get £100 off that light and free delivery. Also in the description box is details about how to enter a competition that Serious Readers are holding until the 31st of August. There are some fantastic prizes. The first prize is a high definition light worth £449, so definitely worth checking out their competition. Second place prize is a Nomad light, and that's worth £149.99. And their third prize is a Roam light, and that's worth £99.99. So it's definitely worth checking out their wonderful competition. It is open to UK entrants only. So thank you so much to Serious Readers for sponsoring today's video. It's Saturday. I'm in the studio today to do some work. I'm working on this video, and I've also got some admin to do as well. And my son and my husband, they're going swimming and things today, so I'm going to have a good few hours in here. It's definitely a bit of a dreary day. There's not much else that I could be doing really. It's it's definitely wet and grey, but the fabrics that I'm working with on this project are definitely cheering me up anyway. So here is the old velvet footstool that I want to upcycle. Now, I've got it into my head that because it's a beanbag and upholstery fabric, that I'm going to use my overlocker to construct the patchwork. I just think it will create really strong seams, and I think it will be a good idea. Now, I did think that this footstool was a cover over some beans separate inside, but I've realised that it isn't. Everything is built into one. This green fabric isn't a cover over it. The beans are built inside. Everything is joined together. It's hard to explain, but what that means is the cover I'm going to create is going to be difficult to create an opening that's big enough to cover all of this. So yeah, I'm definitely running into some problems already. So I got it into my head that because I'm using upholstery fabric scraps, that it would be a good idea to use an overlocker to join them together rather than an ordinary sewing machine. Now my thoughts behind that are that it's going to create a really secure seam on every single seam. So I'm going to give it a go. It's a bit of an experiment really. I'm not by any means saying you need to buy an overlocker to do patchwork, because we all know you absolutely don't. But I don't use my overlocker that much, and I just thought it would be nice to give it a go and see how it works out. So first things first, I don't want black thread in it, I want white. I'm going to try to change the thread, which isn't easy, and yeah, we'll see how I get on with that. I've not used this for years, so definitely going to be a learning curve. So threading an overlocker can be a tricky process, but my thoughts are just snip off the threads, change them to white, and then tie them together and hope that I can feed the threads through that way. What I decided to do was to take my chances with just tying the threads on. I don't think this will work. I don't normally thread it this way. I haven't used it for years and I didn't bring the instruction booklet with me, which was a bit daft. But I did used to use it a lot for making children's clothing. So we'll see if this method works or not. So let's switch it on. And we just want to run the thread through until it turns white. Fingers crossed. Well, that didn't work at all. Foot pedal's not working. How strange. Oh, because this is open. Right, there we go, let's try it. That doesn't sound good. It's stuck. Let me investigate. That's what we got out of the machine. So it kind of worked. One of them is threaded, the upper looper is threaded, the lower looper isn't threaded and the needles aren't threaded, which I thought was probably going to happen. So I'm gonna have to do it manually. Okay, so now I'm threaded. I think I'm threaded anyway, so let's see. That was a palaver, it always is. So I'm just going to make sure I've got all my thread tails. Cross your fingers at second time lucky. Let's see. Ooh. Nope. You know when you start to think, was this even worth it? Why am I doing this? Yay, it worked. Let's have a go on some scraps. So that's what it looks like. That's pretty good. About as good as I'm going to get it. It's pretty secure, and you can see you can still flatten everything out with an iron afterwards. So I'm going to start to sew some strips together now. Now the seam allowance, let's measure that. Now that is just, I'd say it's just about 1/4 of an inch. Not as accurate as doing it on a sewing machine. Does cut an edge off. You can switch the knife off so it doesn't trim the edge as well, but I like to have that on. It makes it neat. So I'm not completely worried about the 1/4 of an inch. All I need to make sure I'm doing is that I'm keeping them all the same and everything should work out. Okay, so let's have a go. So about to stop for the day. Here's where I'm up to. I'm just creating this panel now for cutting out a circle for the top from. It's not quite big enough yet, but I have completed the panel that's going to go all the way around the edge. And here it is, and it's looking really nice. So the final thoughts on using an overlocker, it really does make a nice neat back. I really like that. Definitely makes me happy. It creates a lot of mess with what it cuts off, but it's really nice and neat on the back. So there we go. So, got to stop for today, do some admin instead, but I'll catch up with you again soon. New day, and we are ready to create the top panel. So here it is all stitched together. I just need to now cut a circle out of it. So I'm doing it in the very technical and accurate way, which is just drawing around the original footstool. I mean, I could measure this, I suppose, but yeah, I just like doing things by eye sometimes, and I think this will work out just fine. So I've cut a circle out of the top, and I cut one out of just solid fabric for the bottom, so the bottom isn't pieced patchwork. So I'm just putting the base in. This is what it looks like so far. There, that's the side, that's the top. I've got the footstool the other way around, but you get the idea. But there is going to be a problem with getting it to fit inside. I realised that doing the opening here wasn't going to be a big enough opening to get the whole footstool in anyway, so I decided to go for closed and maybe try and do the opening up the side. I think realistically it needs to be an opening within here, like a zip within this part, but I don't have a zip, and I think I've gone too far with how it's going to be, with how I've made it to allow for a zip anyway. So I think what I'm going to do is attach the top patchwork panel, which I have here, like so. Stitch that all in, and then leave a bit of an opening here, but then stitch it closed by hand. So I might have to stitch along a little bit by hand. I think I can do it on the bottom. I might have to do the bottom on the top. I'm basically going to have to sew it in by hand. So if I do need to take it off and wash it, then I'll have to undo my stitches, and that's okay. I've made cushions like that in the past, and it's okay. I don't think it's going to get super dirty. I'll say you can use the footstool if you take your shoes off. All right, let's see how that goes. So in the end, the workaround that I've ended up going for is leaving this edge completely open at the moment, and I've encased the raw edge there with the overlocker, and I've done the same at the bottom. I've left this big gap here, and what I'm going to do is add Velcro all along here and all along here as well, so that it will be fully closed, but it will be able to open it, take it off and wash it. So it might look a little bit untidy at the moment, all the ends just need finishing off, and I'm just going to nip out now and get some Velcro, and then I will stick it on in place, and then it will be complete. And I think it doesn't look too bad. I'm quite pleased with that, I think. What do you think? So here it is, it's all done now. So we just have this seam here which has got some Velcro on it. Underneath it's a little bit untidy as well, because again I folded it under to do that Velcro edge, but at this point this is all I could think of that I could do to make sure I can get it off and wash it. But honestly, when you put it down you don't even see that edge at all, especially if you turn it the other way. Let's go and put it in its place. Well, I think that turned out alright. It's definitely not perfect, it's a little bit on the big side, but I think I'd rather it be like that so I can get it on and off. And I think it brightens the chair up, and yeah, I'm really happy with that. So I hope you enjoyed the video and seeing the process of making the footstool and how things didn't quite go right, but we got there in the end. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.